This week on Erotic Awakening, HuCows, what to expect at an event, and Exhibitionism.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, we recommend you stop listening right now.
We want to thank our latest patron supporters,
Teresa
and Rose.
Welcome, everybody. Head over to patreon.com/Erotic Awakening today and get your bonus content and support the show.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Dan.
Today on the podcast, we are talking with Daisy and her bull, Master Carl, about something called HuCows, or is it
HuCow.
HuCow?
It's like human, I think.
I will take your word for it. I will say, Dawn, as you were talking about at the beginning, before we started recording, you and I have been in this lifestyle for 15 plus years.
Wow, math. Yes. 20-some years.
And this is not a fetish we've interacted with. I know it's out there, but I don't know anything about it. Fortunately for us, Daisy and her bull, Master Carl, are joining us tonight. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right, start question number one, the obvious one. Daisy, our audience can't see you on video, but I can. Are you wearing a black and white cow? You are.
A cow onesie.
A cow onesie.
Fantastic. I love it.
So I guess the easy question to start with is, what is a HuCow and how do you say it?
I say it HuCow, but it doesn't matter to me. If you say HuCow, it doesn't matter to me. I discovered it at a distance. Bill asked me about it on a Zoom call one night, and I realized that it was the first time like an animal really, like the animal play really rang true for me. I had thought about puppy, I had thought about pony, but none of that really fit me really well. But as soon as he said HuCow, I was like, yes, that makes sense to me. Like, yes, I'm a cow. It makes sense. And when I get into my HuCow headspace, I am a cow. Like I go into full on nonverbal. I can nod, and shake my head, but that's about it. I'm very nonverbal in HuCow headspace.
So is that the fascination? I'm kind of curious with the fascination with, and that might be the wrong word, with HuCow is it because I didn't think of that. Is it the nonverbal and that sort of thing? I've seen some pictures where it looks like it's milking and some things where it's breeding and some stuff. I mean, what else involved in it?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above. So for my part, for this, first off, I'm a sadist, but I got my start, my awakening for kink through True Detective novels and the magazines that came with them, which have damsels in distress and, objectification of your partner. So for me, my part in this is that all of the training or the interactions that we have are to create a stable environment where she knows that she's being objectified. She knows she's being degraded in certain ways. She knows that she's going to be bred. She knows that these things are going to happen in as safe and mentally safe environment as you can have. The part for me is that there can be suffering, there can be objectification, there can be degradation. It can be very sexual if you want it to be. You just have to decide what you are comfortable doing and what your partner is comfortable of doing and find the middle ground.
So I can picture the degradation.
I can't. I'm glad
Really?
you're there.
Because cow, I can kind of, and maybe I'm just guessing.
No, it's very stigmatized. It's very stigmatized. You're definitely onto something with that, with the degradation. And for me, like I'm a big girl and I am very self-conscious about my size. But when I'm in HuCow headspace and he rubs my belly, it brings me deeper into HuCow headspace. It's like the only time I'm actually comfortable in my own body. It's a really empowering thing for me. And it's something that I want to learn everything I can about it because I do feel so comfortable in that headspace and in my skin.
So the degradation, yeah, I'm thinking like verbal language and large and things like that. So what would the suffering?
There's more to it than that.
Yeah, let me back up a little bit because I don't think I understand at all what we're talking about. Is the term HuCow? It's not. I am a doing everything I can to believe I am an actual cow. Is it, or is it that, or is it I am a human who is also a cow? I mean, and the reason I say it like that, I know some pony players who their view of pony play is when I'm in pony space, I am a pony. I act like a pony, I react like a pony. And if you treat me like a pony, then oh, great. Is it that kind of
Yes.
headspace?
Yes, absolutely. For me, it is. Yes.
You add HuCow in there, again, from my perspective, because although you are in a cow headspace, there are obviously physical differences. For instance, let's take milking. Okay. When you milk an actual cow, there are certain ways you do that. If you do that to a human, they're not going to be with you very long.
Right.
So
Oh,
you have
but
to scale things to that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
milking sounds fascinating, though. We've been into like an ice cream factory that had the milking things, and I thought that was the hottest thing to. Never mind.
Yes.
So,
There are actually four
Let's
different
actually,
ways to do it
yeah, I want to get
that I
into the
know of.
milking some.
Yeah.
When you say milk, are you literally milking? I assume these are
Yes.
you're creating a situation where there's breast milk being created.
All right. Well, let's back it up a little bit. All right.
okay.
Because there are ways that you can absolutely induce lactation.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it through chemicals. You can do it through certain medications. You can do it through varying different ways. You know, there are vitamins you can take which will enhance your production. Um, because we're taking Daisy in at a ground level and working our way up, and she had previously had a child, we didn't start with any of that. What we started with is using a um, normal human breast milker, hospital grade,
Mm-hmm.
and having her work on that every night. You do it in small increments. Now, other than that, other things that you can do to enhance the milking is you can purchase yourself what is called a small animal milker, commonly referred to as a goat milker. Okay.
Mm.
And those predominantly come in a couple of different styles. You get them with straight suction or you get them with pulse suction. I highly recommend the
Damn,
pulse suction in certain situations.
that's like fucking
Um,
hot. Okay. Keep
well, it
going.
gets better. So you can also hand express.
Ooh.
So if you have
Mm.
your HuCow in position, you can hand express with your hands, which literally, have you ever seen a cow get milked by a man sitting on a stool?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. So there's a version of that that can be done on a human female, which will absolutely enhance that. Now, as part of this, you can actually bring in TENS units.
Huh.
Because say, for instance, you want to give the simulation that they're being nursed on. If you're stimulating the muscles around the nipple with electricity, it produces the same effect in the body. And then there's also my personal favorite, where you can get the udder in your mouth and suck on it a little bit.
We're both fond of
But,
that.
and you do not have to have a HuCow with large breasts, although Daisy is more than adequately equipped. Size actually of the breast doesn't matter. I know of another, she's just starting out and she has very small breasts, but she's already able to lactate. So it does not matter of the size of the breast as much as the intent and the dedication to it. You know, you can also, to add to the headspace, sexualize the milking.
But there's where we get
So
into my, a little bit of a question. I've got to first have to comment that apparently we have just unlocked a new kink for Dawn because
Unlocked.
she's basically
I saw her face. I
masturbating
saw her
over
face.
here right now. It's just going brand new information to me. Now, with
Absolutely.
you could you could sexualize or have sexual fantasies about an actual cow. When you sexualize a HuCow, are you then leaning into that this is part of, oh, this is part human too? Or are you playing on a level of fantasy bestiality?
For me, it's a little bit of both. I am absolutely Bull has given me prosthetic a bull cock, and I come harder with that when he lets me come. I come harder than that with any than I've ever come before. And I've always been interested in like horse cock and other things like that ever since I can remember, honestly. So this is definitely a deep-seated kink that has always been there, but now I'm able to express it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, yeah, there is definitely some bestiality fantasy in there for sure.
For my part, I mean, I'm going to say it's probably the same thing to an extent because, again, being a sadist and being who I am, the control factor becomes a very large part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of Daisy's training is edging, and involved in that edging is the fact that it becomes more incrementally harder for her to edge while being milked.
Mm.
I bet.
So it can become the point where I can just walk up and just tug on one of her udders, and she's halfway there.
See, I think it has something to do. You know how I like cupcake boobs?
Mm-hmm.
I love the pressure around boobs. So the whole idea of milking and wow.
Mm-hmm. So
Just,
once a lactation starts, there's also a further level of control because as anybody who's ever breastfed a child knows that, and or been around actual cattle, when it's time to get milked, the cow wants to get milked.
mm-hmm.
And if the cow has been naughty or you wish to prolong the cow's agony, you could say, well, not right now.
And
so
then
the
maybe
pressure,
some caning or other impacty things.
That you
to
would do
add
on a
to it,
human, but not necessarily on a cow.
correct. Thus the HuCow.
Right, that's
From my
the
perspective.
cow. So
Yeah.
I've got another question that something that Daisy said. Nope, I can't even paraphrase what it was that you said that made me think this. So when you go into cow headspace, is there a feeling of, the only word I've got is dumbness? Is there a
Yeah.
feeling of like dumbness? You don't have to think about things. You can just, can you be a bimbo cow?
Yes. Yes. Yes, that's what we're working
So-
on actually.
So here's the thing. What you're talking about
hmm
is from the top side perspective, okay? Most submissives want you to take control to relieve them of the burden of decisions. Okay, I think we can agree on that.
Yes.
In HuCow headspace or HuCow play, however you want to look at it, when you're doing that, you're just taking it a step further that they don't get to make a decision. They get led around, hooked up by their nose, hooked up to the milker, put in a stanchion, and there is such a thing as a breeding stanchion. And in those situations, they don't have to think. They just have to feel. They can concentrate on what's going on in their body.
It's super freeing and relieving and empowering and all of the good things that I want it to be. It very much is. It's yeah, it's I love it. It's freeing.
I would guess there must be a level of consensual non-consent to that too, because
Oh,
I
absolutely.
don't imagine that once the cow is hooked up to the breeding stanchion to say, you know what, I'm not feeling it tonight.
Well,
Right.
this is where you have to have that risk, the rack system. You can have CNC, you got to have the rack system. You need to have a discussion before you get into that space because, especially when somebody like Daisy, who is on the spectrum, okay, she can become nonverbal very quickly.
Hmm.
So we have our conversations of how are you feeling tonight? Are we going to get into X, Y, or Z prior to starting this? Because she may not be able to properly express herself during the scene or
Mhm.
during the play. So just having that conversation beforehand, from my perspective, like I'm never going to tell you this is only one true way to do it, but how
Sure.
I do it is this. We have that conversation beforehand, and I keep eyes on her if I see her starting. So there's a vacant look that comes into the HuCow Daisy's eyes, and then there's a look of a vacant look in distress. And they are two
Okay.
very different things.
So for the weirdest question so far, which I think we've gone pretty interesting so far, what do you do with the milk? I mean, bowl of cereal or?
So I used to say that. there are many options. Believe it or not, there is a huge market for breast milk for bodybuilders, cancer patients, and Japanese men for some reason. So you can freeze it and sell it, or most of your local hospitals actually have a donation bank for mothers who cannot lactate to feed their children. The level of production from a HuCow can vary greatly. So depending on what you have going on, I've known HuCows produce quarts a day, or it's a single bottle. It also means that, and tell me if you've ever heard this before, you got to drink your water. Because despite what HuCow Daisy thinks, she does not run on coffee alone.
Oh, I've had those days. So hydrate if you are going to lactate.
All right.
Very much so, yeah.
Hydrate to lactate. And, though, Dan, this does remind me of a story. So I'm wondering if you guys have run across any issues with having bodily fluids in the dungeon, because we actually, was it Femcar that was thrown out of a dungeon many, many years ago? So
that one.
Femcar used to be a presenter that was so much into humiliation and degradation and,
I know her
all
well.
those things. Okay. And I think she was lactating and putting the breast milk in little cups and then walking around with a tray to serve people in the dungeon.
That sounds like Femcar.
And I think, and they removed her, if I remember right.
I guess
so.
so.
Many, many years ago.
But still, the question being, right, how do you play publicly, and how is it seen, if so?
So it's something that has not been publicly done a lot. So getting Daisy into HuCow headspace on a public level is something that can be worked into. She's still at the beginning mid-range of her training.
Okay.
Cool.
So down the road, I could see that being a problem. And I see it being a problem because of the stigma involved on many levels. The main level being that, other people, bodily fluids, we don't want in here. And, as a person who runs spaces, bodily fluid flying around a dungeon is not a good situation. So, I could see the individuals having issues with that. So far, it hasn't been a problem. I think everybody that we know and everybody we've interacted with when we say the word HuCow has reacted in a very, very good manner, save one person.
Okay. And considering how our mix of people that we interact with, and that everybody's going to have something that they don't like, not a big deal there.
Absolutely.
Clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. My kink ain't your kink, but it's still a kink.
Yeah, exactly. Clearly, Dawn is enamored with this lifestyle and wants to learn more. So for her or anybody else listening to the podcast, is there a community of HuCows? Is there a place that HuCows gather and learn from each other?
The funny thing is, I know there are large communities of HuCows in Florida. I know there is a large community of HuCows, actually, surprisingly, in the middle of the Bible Belt. Not so much in the Midwest, but as far as a gathering of it, I have not run across one. And if somebody hears one, please tell me. I would love to take her. And I did get contacted by a HuCow contest in Germany. And they wanted to know if in 2025, late 2025, if I'd be interested in going to Germany and bringing Daisy to display her.
Prize cow.
Prize cow. I tell you,
cow.
a blue ribbon cow. That's
it
fantastic.
Is a thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. So I imagine that if somebody ever actually really put the effort into it, just as you have pony competitions, HuCow competitions could happen.
Wow, bring home the blue ribbon.
Mm-hmm.
Master slave title, HuCow blue ribbon.
I like what you're thinking.
It is hard to find. Like, you can find drawings of it, you can find pictures of it. but it is because it's stigmatized, because some people do have such an adverse reaction to the level of degradation and humiliation innately involved with it. It has been historically a harder kink to find sources of. But there are some amazing artists out there who come up with brilliant pieces.
I would like to add a couple of things to the HuCow genre, because HuCow is not about gender.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. I
I had.
automatically thought it was all women. I mean, as in I didn't think
Nope.
that. I just assumed it was okay.
No, it is not. I actually know a stud bull, and there are many, many trans people who are into it, and it offers the same, how do I want to phrase it, the same freeing nature that it does to any gender. So the idea being that in the end, what makes you happy. I mean, obviously.
Right, right. I am betting, Dan, that if we went to a Hypno Kink Con where we're finding the kitty cats, the puppy dogs, the ponies, and the people that are using hypnosis to help shift that headspace, I bet you HuCow would
Absolutely.
definitely fit into that.
Absolutely.
As part of, you said hypnosis, so as part of
Yes.
Daisy's training, we're getting into the point, or getting near the point, where hypnotic triggers are going to be inserted into her training. So she already has a hypnotic trigger that lets her orgasm on command.
Nice.
Fantastic.
And eventually she will have other ones inserted as well, where it takes more of the choice away from her and makes her more of the objectified, for lack of a phrase, barn animal.
Oh,
Enthusiastically.
I was going to say, I see the smile on your face. No one else will be able to, but we see the smile on your face. So this is, yes, enthusiastic. Yes.
All right. So I've got one more question for you, if you don't mind. And Daisy, this question's for you. Do you ever eat a hamburger and just start to randomly giggle?
I am allergic to meat. I got bit by a tick, so I can't eat beef. But no, I used to love me some steak. Oh yeah, love me gobbling up some steak.
I was
Used
going
to.
ask a question kind of like that, like with the humiliation degradation thing. If you ever like threatened her to become a steak or hamburger and then decided not to ask that question, but you went there.
I went there.
So I've got a branding iron that when her
that
training is
too.
complete is going to go right on her prime hindquarters and sizzle. Right now, we've left the eating into the human factor. However, in the past, I have thought up and or planned manners in which a trough can be created. And if her head's locked in a stanchion, you're eating that or you're not eating it.
There you go.
What creativity.
Yes.
Yes, you can be as creative as you want. So, and the other thing to remember is that HuCows have hands. So a big level of bondage can be involved through various means. For instance, you can put a pair of gloves on her that look like cow hooves.
Right.
Or
that's what I went into
when they're getting milked. Okay. Or you can, while they're being milked, while they're in a stanchion, while they're being bred, you can pull the arms up behind in a open strappado to hold them still.
Daisy?
And then, of course, there's the fucking involved.
That's what I thought I heard. So we need to make sure you said it again.
And just in case you're wondering, if you have an electro slut, a cattle prod can do wonderful things to her body.
It sounds like we are just scratching the surface of something that you are both very passionate about. Is it all right for our listeners to reach out to you to ask additional questions? And if so, how do they do so?
Absolutely, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, you can reach me on FET, Master_Carl, Carl with a K.
And I am HuCow Daisy. There are 2 underscores between HuCow and Daisy.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for teaching us something and for basically, apparently you've been doing dirty talk with Dawn this entire time. We had no idea this was going to be a thing for her. Clearly it is. If you would like to talk to Dawn, we are at a variety of events coming up.
Oh my God, please do. So our next event is at Naughty Revival in Minnesota in just a couple of days.
Apex in Phoenix in December.
Cure in Columbus in January.
Intrigue in Indianapolis in February.
And June, we will be in Tulsa, and we've got a couple of more things that we are lining up. So keep up with all our events, book news, discounts, and more via the Erotic Awakening newsletter.
And get your EA shout-out like Joshua in New York.
Jess in the USA.
And S in Europe.
Head over to eroticawakening.com and subscribe today.
Dawn, Black Friday has come and gone already.
It has, but we are a little behind on this episode, so I'm going to allow this Black Friday sale to last a little bit longer, probably only until about like December 12th to make sure I can get things mailed out. But we do have the Kink Starter cards on our store, on our website, for only $15. So, and that's like cheap. We've had the same $20 price on those cards for the 10 years we've been selling them. 15 is...
Not too long ago, we released a book with Kevin and Katie called Lead, Follow, Love. And we were talking, and they're like, well, what should we price it for? I said, $20. They said, why? Well, we always do $20. How long have you been doing that? Oh, as long as we've been writing books in 10 years.
15.
They said, yeah. So they schooled me on this thing called inflation and price increases and stuff. So we're 25 on that one. I talked me into that one.
Talked into 25 for that book. Unless you catch us in person and I'm selling them, and then it's still 20 because I don't carry change.
There you go.
So
I wondered, Daisy, have you had a chance to try much, not just in HuCows space, but exhibitionism in general? Because this feels like something that would be a huge exhibitionist kind of thing.
We're getting there. My confidence is getting there. I'm super self-conscious, and since as Bill said, I'm on the autism spectrum. It's something we're working.
Nice.
So
Dawn,
sometimes I have to take her clothes off her with a knife.
Which is fine.
That's not a bad thing.
So exhibitionism is like really one of my things. I love it, and I'm trying to think. So that's like our kink from our kink list.
I would say you started. Do you know when you started exhibitionism?
Like near the beginning, wasn't it? I like the first thing that you tried to do with me was to have me unbutton my shirt in a moving car, and I was absolutely terrified and totally fucking turned on.
You and I, when we started to go to events at the very beginning of our kinky life together, this is of course long before we were presenting, we would get you signed up as a demo bottom.
Oh yeah, the first couple events we did, so that would have been 2000, 2001. So I got to demo bottom for Jay Wiseman and John Warren and Deb Addington. We were able to take pictures of the Deborah Addington one with the whole fisting thing. So like I'm like naked and splayed open, and so much so that when I came across someone else like a year later, he's like, oh, I was at that event. What were you doing? And I was like, oh, I was the naked one up in front of the class. And he's like, oh, that was you. I'm the one that tore down the bookshelf trying to get a better look at you. So that sort of thing. So yeah.
I'm actually going to go in a weird direction with this.
Oh no.
So Master Carl, you've played in public dungeons as a top, I assume.
Absolutely.
Are tops, therefore, aren't we just a bunch of exhibitionists? Or are we just doing it in public for fun? Or are we a bunch of egomaniacs showing off our skills? What do you think?
So I think we go through stages. We are absolutely exhibitionists. We are also showmen. We are also educators in what we're doing. And in the process of, as we learn, as we grow, as we become more skilled, by doing it in a, for lack of a phrase, professional manner, even though you can laugh, laughter has to be a part of it, you can become more. I think I'm at the point in my life where, yes, I absolutely play to the crowd. I try to get them involved every once in a while, because absolutely nobody believes that Daisy is innocent.
That's not true. That is not true. I have pulled it off once. I pulled it off once.
Not with me.
So I'm thinking, Dan, so tops,
Mm-hmm.
exhibitionist,
Mm-hmm.
me, absolutely an exhibitionist. Not everybody's an exhibitionist, but we've been doing chemical play. I'm getting ready to do it again in Minneapolis. We've been doing chemical play demos
Mm-hmm.
to groups and some things. So, like chemical play, I like the chemical play. I like pussy punching. When we're playing together, just us here,
Mm-hmm.
the power exchange is really prevalent. So that gets me all naughtied up. But when I'm a demo bottom, like the last two times in the chemical play thing, you've done the chemical play, then done the punching, and I've come each time in front of an audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really has to do with the addition of the audience. Because the last group that we did it for was like all newbies. And
Oh,
they'd like
wow.
never had a demo bottom that actually got naked, like in front of them at their newbie group thing. So I was like one of the first ones to do that. And then to have the chemical and to be on display and the
Mhm.
punching and oh yeah. And Dan's like, did you really come from that? Yes, yes, I did.
Well, there you go. Which is why we
As
only
I
have.
tell Daisy, sorry, as I tell Daisy on a regular basis, if she makes a mess, she has to clean it up.
Yeah, that
there
was
you go.
Cows can't
that
use their hands.
Nice.
Awesome, awesome. So exhibitionism, absolutely an addition to some people.
Yeah, and it will be really interesting. You mentioned we're going to Naughty Revival coming up, and it's a different kind of event where exhibitionism is highly part of the event. It is pole dancing, it
Mhm.
is shows, it is
A swinging suite,
a swinging suite. Yeah.
nakedness, come as you are or come as you want to be, that sort of thing. And so, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we touched on is what to expect at an event
Mm-hmm.
because we're coming up to Naughty Revival. And we actually had a podcast listener reach out to us and say, oh my God, so we're swingers. When I come to this event, what can I expect? And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, well, if you've only been to swinging events, let me give you a rundown of what a kink event is because they're like, we're going to skip the classes and just show up for Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you can do that.
And a lot of some people do.
do.
I'll say some people do.
Yeah, but you're missing out on the whole kink weekend experience. You come in Friday, everybody's like ready to party for the weekend. You check in, you check the booklet of classes, you figure out what it is that you might want to learn or sit in on or experience, and then that's how you meet other people and people that have the same like fetishes that you might have or interest, and then there's usually social area so you get to chill and have
Mhm.
meals. And I'm just like, if you come in Friday night, there might even be a newbie meetup,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where
Yeah.
everybody can meet each other. And they're like, so are we going to have people sniffing around my wife? And I'm like, well, you probably had that experience at a swinging event. At a kink event,
Not so
that's
much.
not so much. I mean, this is the type of event where there's going to be swingers there. So it could happen because
Mhm.
that's, the expectations. I said, but most kink events are so consent focused, as in, it's a no until yes is said.
Even to the point,
Yeah.
and this is something that we learned at a swing house party recently, in that somebody reached past you to grab something. And
Someone touched my hip to grab their pop on the other side of me, and it freaked me out for a quick second because I'm like, who's touching me? Because I spend most of my time in kink events and then a little bit of time in swing events, right? And yeah, you're exactly right because what my experience has told me is that it feels like yes is assumed until no is said at a swing event. Nothing wrong with that if that's the expectation. But at a kink event, no is assumed until yes is said,
Mhm.
which is
So
the mode I'm used to operating under.
I may have a unique perspective on this.
Okay.
I am involved with the Hudson Valley Lifestyle Club,
Mm-hmm.
and the Hudson Valley Lifestyle Club is a swink community.
Nice.
Okay, so my thought with swingers is that swingers get a bad rep in a lot of kinks because you're talking apples and oranges,
Right.
and they don't know any better.
Right.
So my purpose in getting involved with the Hudson Valley Lifestyle Club was to breach that gap. Here's everything that you know. Here's everything that I know. Where's the common ground?
Mm-hmm.
And it has produced some very, very interesting relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning a tremendous amount of information, and they're absorbing it because they want to have access to everything.
Nice.
So crossing that line and saying, hey, here's this, here's that, this is how we do it. Sir Mr. West and Rosie Cheeks, who are also part of the HVLC, or the founders, excuse me, they asked me to be their kink ambassador to start with. And in doing so, these individuals see, because again, I showed them, here's a pie chart of what consent looks like in a swing community or swingers community. Here is a pie chart of what consent looks like for kinksters.
Mm-hmm.
And you overlay the two. And yes, you're absolutely right. There is a huge difference in some things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot that isn't different. And you start with that basis and you get surprising results from people that want to learn.
Absolutely. And that totally makes sense to me. Yeah, I'd actually love to see those pie charts at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, Dawn, though, if we think about that kink event, what should I expect? Well, it's tricky because we just attended Explorations into Kink in St. Louis.
Right.
And now we're going to go to Naughty Revival. And then maybe later somebody goes to South Plains Leather Fest.
Mm-hmm.
In general, you can say, well, they're all the same. You show up on Friday night, you get registered, you hang out, there's an opening ceremony. Maybe the dungeon's open. Saturday, you go to classes all day. Maybe there's social space. Saturday night, you go to the dungeon. Sunday, you wake up, you pack your shit, and get out.
Right.
But even with that, if we compared a leather event and a swink event and a kink, and these two different kink events, right? Naughty Revival and Explorations into Kink, there's still, as much as you can say there's that commonality, there's a big difference between them as well.
And then you throw in Dark Odyssey and some of the outdoor events and commonalities and very different environments.
So what would you say? What are 3 things anybody can expect going to a kink event?
A weekend kink event?
Yeah. You go, then I'll go.
Okay. Registration.
Okay.
Everybody's got registration. It might be done differently, but that's the first thing you do.
Okay. Nobody cares how you dress. Now, yes, if you dress all sexy, people are going to go, oh, look at how sexy you are. But everybody always asks, how should I dress? Well, what I tell most people is, for the daytime, dress to be comfortable. At nighttime, either, if you feel like dressing to impress, great. If you're with me and we're playing, dress in something you can get out of quickly.
Easy, or you'll have a knife.
Yes.
And some people go in pajamas or onesies or whatever is comfortable, or we're naked.
All right, your turn.
So yes, well, this podcaster is like, so we're going to be coming dressed to impress. I'm assuming everybody else will be. And I'm like, you know what? It's a hotel takeover. 50% of the people might be buck-ass naked.
Yeah, good point.
Because we can be. So a third thing... I was going to say dungeon, but that's not true. We've run events that did not have a dungeon.
Yeah, but this is your standard kink event. It's going to have...
kink event is going to have play space and a dungeon.
Yep.
So, yeah, even the Hypno Kink has a dungeon.
And I will add for my second one that, nope, you don't got to do nothing. Nobody cares.
Right.
Just by showing up does not mean that you have to get spanked or go into the play space or go to any classes.
Mm-hmm.
You can go. Now, will you regret it? Maybe if you don't do anything, but there's no requirements.
So, yeah, but just because you can watch doesn't mean you should be too close.
True.
So try to stay out of their space. So my third one, am I doing a third one? Hopefully social space. So you can just sit and meet people, but not everybody has social space. So.
Well, I want to disagree with that.
Yeah.
I've taught at a lot of big events. All right. And in doing so, some of the best conversations, the best times I've had is smoking cigars in a lounge area, talking with the most diverse amount of people you could possibly imagine. I've met people that I would have never thought I was going to run into in a con. One of the classes I teach is caning. And while I was at a big con, I was having a cigar. This individual from the Philippines came up, excuse me, not the Philippines, Southeast Asia.
Mhm.
And his job was as an executioner. And my first thought was, okay. And he's like, not what you think. My job is to execute the order of the court,
Okay.
whatever that is. And in his country, caning is a punishment. From him, I learned over a cigar about tongue caning.
Tongue, as in mouth?
Tongue, as in your mouth.
No, in your mouth, maybe, but not in my mouth. That's
Yeah, mine either. Tongue caning is one of those things that in his country is reserved in truly misogynistic manners for women who speak out of turn or somebody who is convicted of falsehood.
Now you're getting the growly face. But don't,
Listen,
don't growl at the messenger.
Don't growl until you've tried it.
With it. But I will say this. I decided to incorporate this in my caning class because if somebody else hears about it, are they going to do it right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Sure.
So yeah, no,
I learned the difference from him of what the who's, the what's, the whens, and the wheres of it, and incorporated that in my caning class.
And I absolutely love social space. To me, it is one of the most important things of an event, but not every event has the space to be able to do that, unfortunately, especially if it's not a hotel takeover. But that's the first thing I look for.
Even if it's not a defined space, there's a social space. If you got a bunch of people smoking cigarettes outside,
yeah, fair enough.
There's a social space.
Fair enough.
That was certainly true when I was a smoker at my old job. And then the third one for me, Dawn, I'm going to mention is you will see some people up on stage saying, oh, we run this event and all this kind of crap. But the reality is, like we did, sure. But the reality is it is run by volunteers. It is run by people that are surrendering their time to make sure you get a pretty little badge or you know where the bathroom is or even most of these events, even the presenters are volunteers. So
Absolutely.
Find yourself, so if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to one of these events, I won't know anybody. Well, damn it, go out, volunteer.
Oh, absolutely.
Say, hey, how can I help? Because these event producers are going to jump on that and say, oh my God, I would love to have another pair of hands. And it's a great way to meet other people at the event as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is the people who put where the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
Indeed. So, all right, you about ready to wrap this up? Because I do have tentacles.
I was going to say, I don't know why my friend is sending you tentacles instead of sending me food on boobs.
So, well, he's been my friend for a while too.
That's
and
fair.
He's been hunting.
I want a tentacle friend.
So Barrick, who used to do BSing with Barrick and Sheba when we ran the network years ago, has been sending me all kinds of tentacle links and werewolf links and all the things. You did get what kind of boobs did you get? So Dan loves food on boobs.
I got Christmas
and I
boobs.
love tentacles. You got Christmas boobs.
Yes.
It was like little wreaths around the nipples.
Yes.
From
super cute. Super
someone
cute.
on our Discord channel.
Yes.
So, yay. Tentacles and werewolves and I think some people have run out of tentacles at this point, and that's why I'm getting the werewolves, but I'm good with that.
I was going to say
werewolves, vampires, shapeshifters,
I expect
octopus.
We're about to get flooded with HuCows. Be a part of the Erotic Awakening Podcast community.
You can support us on Patreon and get early access to the ad-free version of the podcast, a free version of the audiobook Polyamory Toolkit, free ebooks, discount on monthly Zoom classes, member-only Discord access, and more.
Find all the goodies at patreon.com/Erotic Awakening today.
Help others find us. Take a moment to support the podcast. Rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Or just tell your friends.
Join the conversation with us and other listeners. Use the links from the Erotic Awakening website for our growing Discord channel.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love talking to you.
Contact us with questions, podcast comments, or just to say hi.
We are Dan and Dawn on FetLife.
And Erotic Awakening on Instagram.
Or just email us at dananddawn@eroticawakening.com.
Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dawn.
Bye,
Master
Daisy.
Carl. Bye,
Bye,
Daisy.
Master Carl.
Bye, guys.
Bye,
Thank you for
guys.
having us, please. Thank you.